No one loves a fat girl, sir, but I can cook. A frontier love story that will melt your heart. The wind howled across the Montana plains like a ghost mourning the past. Inside a modest log cabin, firelight flickered against rough-hewn walls, casting long shadows over a woman who'd long believed she was invisible. Her name was Eliza Mae Holloway, 32, widowed at 25, and alone ever since. She'd carved out a life on the edge of nowhere, tending chickens, mending fences, and baking bread so good it could make a grown man weep. But none of it mattered, she thought, not when the mirror told her she was too broad, too soft, too much. Men in these parts wanted lithe girls with sun-kissed cheeks and quick smiles, not women like her, whose hands were calloused from labor and whose hips swayed with the weight of sorrow and survival. One bitter November evening, a knock came at her door. Not the kind of knock that signaled danger. No, this one was hesitant, almost polite. She opened it to find Silas Creed, the quiet rancher from the next valley over. He stood tall in a worn leather duster, snow dusting his shoulders, eyes the color of storm clouds. "Evening, Miss Holloway," he said, hat in hand. "My wagon broke down a mile yonder. Could I trouble you for a bite and a place by the fire till morning?" Eliza hesitated. She hadn't had company in months. But kindness was bred into her bones, so she stepped aside. "Come in, Mr. Creed. I've got stew on the stove." He entered, ducking slightly under the low doorway, and the cabin seemed to shrink around his presence. She served him a bowl, her movements careful, practiced. He ate in silence, savoring every spoonful. "You've got a gift," he finally said, voice low and warm like the fire between them. She looked down at her apron, fingers twisting the fabric. "Well, no one loves a fat girl, sir, but I can cook." The words hung in the air, raw and trembling. She hadn't meant to say it, not aloud, not to him. Shame burned her cheeks hotter than the hearth. Silas set his spoon down slowly. He didn't look away, didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes locked on hers. "Eliza May," he said, her full name, spoken like a prayer. "I've seen women prettier than spring wildflowers, and men sharper than a new axe, but I've never met anyone with your grit. You've held this place together through blizzards and grief. You feed stray dogs and mend your neighbor's roof without being asked. You carry kindness like it's second nature." His voice softened. "Beauty ain't just skin deep out here. It's in the way you rise before dawn to feed your hens, in how you hum hymns while kneading dough, in the fact that you opened your door to a stranger tonight, even when you've got every reason to keep it shut." Tears welled in his eyes, but she blinked them back fiercely. I'm not what folks expect," she murmured. "Good, because the world's full of what folks expect. What it needs is more of you." And then, in that quiet cabin, with snow falling outside and firelight dancing on the walls, something shifted. Not with grand declarations or dramatic gestures, but with the quiet certainty of a man who saw her, really saw her. He didn't offer empty flattery. He didn't promise forever. He simply said, "May I come back tomorrow to fix your fence post? It's leaning something awful. And maybe share another bowl of that stew?" Eliza nodded, her throat too tight for words. When he left the next morning, the fence stood straight, and so did she. Weeks passed. Silas returned, not every day, but often enough that his boots by the door became familiar. They talked about cattle and constellations, about loss and the strange grace of starting over. He never once mentioned her size again, not because he ignored it, but because it simply didn't matter. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the hills, he reached for her hand. His palm was rough, but his touch was gentle. I reckon I've fallen for you, Eliza May. Not despite who you are, but because of it." She turned to him then, eyes shining. "Even the parts I hate?" He replied, "Especially those, because they're the parts that made you strong. And strong is what keeps love alive out here." They married that spring, beneath a canopy of budding cottonwoods. No grand church, no fancy dress, just two souls who had weathered loneliness and found each other in the quiet spaces between hardship and hope. Years later, when their children asked how they fell in love, Eliza would smile and say, "He saw me when I thought no one could." And Silas would add, "She taught me that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about seeing someone perfectly and choosing them anyway." In a world that often measures worth by waistlines and appearances, their story reminds us that true love isn't found in perfection. It's forged in kindness, resilience, and the courage to believe you're worthy just as you are. So, if you've ever felt too much, too heavy, too loud, too broken, remember Eliza May. Remember that someone out there may already be walking toward your door, not to fix you, but to sit by your fire and say, "I see you, and you're enough." Like this story? Don't forget to subscribe for more heartfelt tales from the frontier of the human heart. Share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever been seen in a way that changed everything? Thanks for watching.